Welcome to Lecture 8. In today's session, we'll explore the tools and techniques that businesses use to detect and prevent payment fraud. With the rapid growth of e-commerce and digital payments, the risk of fraud has never been higher. It's critical for businesses to deploy strong fraud detection mechanisms to protect themselves and their customers. By the end of this lecture, you will understand common types of payment fraud, learn about the tools and technologies used to detect fraudulent activities, explore different fraud detection techniques, understand the importance of balancing fraud prevention with customer experience. Understanding payment fraud. Payment fraud occurs when unauthorized transactions are made using stolen or manipulated payment information. Fraudsters use various tactics to exploit vulnerabilities in payment systems, targeting both consumers and businesses. Common types of payment fraud. Card not present, CNP fraud. In CNP fraud, the fraudster uses stolen credit or debit card details to make purchases online or over the phone, without the physical card being present. This is one of the most common forms of fraud in e-commerce. Account takeover, ATO. Fraudsters gain unauthorized access to a user's account, for example bank, e-commerce, and use it to make fraudulent transactions. This is often done through phishing attacks or credential stuffing. Friendly fraud, chargeback fraud. In this scenario, a legitimate customer makes a purchase but later claims the transaction was unauthorized or disputes the charge, leading to a chargeback. While not always malicious, friendly fraud poses challenges for merchants. Phishing and social engineering. Fraudsters trick customers into providing sensitive payment information, for example, credit card numbers, passwords, through deceptive emails, messages, or phone calls. Synthetic identity fraud. This involves creating a fake identity by combining real and fictitious information, for example using a real social security number with a fake name, to open accounts and commit fraud. Fraud detection tools. Businesses use a wide range of tools to monitor payment transactions and detect potential fraud. These tools use advanced algorithms and data analysis to identify suspicious activities in real time. 1. Rule-based systems. Rule-based systems are one of the simplest and oldest tools for detecting fraud. These systems rely on predefined rules that flag transactions based on specific criteria, such as transaction amount, location, or frequency. How it works. Rules are created based on known patterns of fraudulent behavior. For example, transactions over a certain dollar amount or purchases made in high-risk regions. When a transaction violates one or more rules, it's flagged for further investigation or automatically declined. Example: a rule-based system may flag a transaction if a customer makes a large purchase from an unusual location, such as a foreign country they have never visited. Pros: easy to implement and customize. Can handle basic fraud scenarios. Cons: limited ability to detect complex or emerging fraud patterns. May result in false positives impacting legitimate customers. 2. Machine learning-based systems. Machine learning, ML, has become a powerful tool in fraud detection. ML algorithms can analyze vast amounts of data, recognize patterns, and learn from historical transactions to detect fraud in real time. How it works. Machine learning models are trained using large datasets of both legitimate and fraudulent transactions. The system learns to identify subtle patterns of fraud that rule-based systems may miss. ML models continuously improve as they process more data, adapting to new fraud tactics. Example: a machine learning system can detect unusual patterns of behavior, such as a customer making several small transactions in quick succession from different devices, which may indicate bot-driven fraud. Pros: can detect complex and evolving fraud patterns. Reduces false positives by distinguishing between legitimate and fraudulent transactions more accurately. Cons: requires significant amounts of data to train the models effectively. Can be complex and costly to implement. 3. Behavioral analytics. Behavioral analytics focuses on analyzing the behavior of users during the payment process. It helps detect anomalies that might indicate fraudulent activity. How it works. The system monitors how users interact with the website or payment system, for example, typing speed, mouse movements, time spent on certain pages. Any deviations from a user's normal behavior, such as suddenly typing much faster or slower than usual, can raise red flags. Example, if a user typically logs into their account from a certain location and suddenly attempts to log in from a completely different region, the system may flag this as suspicious. Pros: can detect fraud attempts even if the fraudster has legitimate login credentials. Effective at identifying account takeover and phishing attacks. Cons: requires baseline behavior data for each customer. May generate false positives if the customer's behavior changes due to legitimate reasons. 4. Geolocation and IP monitoring. Geolocation and IP monitoring tools help track the location of users during the payment process and compare it to their typical behavior. How it works. The system tracks the IP address and geolocation data of the user at the time of the transaction. If the IP address or location seems unusual, for example, a customer usually makes purchases in the US, but the transaction is originating from Russia, the transaction may be flagged for review. Example, a fraud detection system may block a transaction if the cardholder's billing address is in one country, but the transaction is being initiated from an IP address in a different high-risk region. Pros: provides an additional layer of security by detecting location-based anomalies. Can be used in conjunction with other fraud detection methods. Cons: may result in false positives if a legitimate customer is traveling or using a VPN. 5. 3D Secure 3D Seconds. 3D Secure is a protocol designed to add an extra layer of authentication to online transactions. It requires the cardholder to authenticate themselves through their issuing bank before completing the transaction. How it works. During checkout, the customer is redirected to their bank's 3 deciseconds page. The customer must authenticate the transaction by entering a password using a biometric method, for example, fingerprint or face recognition, or entering a one-time password, OTP, sent via SMS or email. Once the authentication is successful, the transaction is completed. Example, when making an online purchase, the customer's bank prompts them to enter a one-time password sent to their phone before the transaction is approved. Pros: adds a strong layer of protection, especially for card-not-present (CNP) transactions. Reduces the likelihood of fraud and chargebacks for businesses. Cons: can create friction in the payment process, potentially leading to cart abandonment. Fraud detection techniques. Beyond the tools mentioned, businesses employ a variety of techniques to enhance their fraud detection efforts. Transaction velocity monitoring. This technique tracks the number of transactions a customer makes over a specific period. A sudden spike in transaction frequency could indicate fraud. For instance, if a user makes 10 transactions in 5 minutes, the system may flag it as suspicious. Device fingerprinting. This technique collects and analyzes information about the device a user is using, for example, browser type, operating system, device ID. If a fraudster attempts to make a transaction using a different device than usual, it can raise a red flag. Consortium data sharing. Many businesses and payment processors share fraud data with each other in a fraud consortium. This allows them to identify patterns across multiple companies and flag suspicious behavior that may not be visible to a single business. Cross-channel monitoring. Fraudsters often attack through multiple channels such as mobile, web, and in-store systems. Cross-channel monitoring helps businesses track suspicious behavior across all platforms and provides a comprehensive view of potential fraud. Balancing fraud prevention and customer experience. While preventing fraud is crucial, businesses must also be careful not to create unnecessary friction for legitimate customers. False positives where legitimate transactions are mistakenly flagged as fraud can lead to cart abandonment and lost revenue. Tips for balancing fraud prevention and customer experience. Adjust fraud detection thresholds. Fine-tuning rule-based systems and machine learning models can help reduce false positives. For example, loosening restrictions for known and trusted customers while tightening them for first-time users. Use dynamic authentication. Instead of always requiring multi-factor authentication, MFA, businesses can use risk-based authentication. For low-risk transactions, they can allow the customer to proceed without additional steps, while higher-risk transactions may trigger additional authentication. Customer communication. Keep customers informed if their transactions are flagged for review or if further authentication is required. Transparency helps build trust and reduces frustration. Continuous learning and adaptation. Fraudsters' techniques evolve over time, so it's essential for fraud detection systems to continuously learn from new data and adapt their rules and models accordingly. Key takeaways. Payment fraud is a significant challenge for businesses, with common types including card-not-present fraud, account takeover, and phishing. Tools such as rule-based systems, machine learning models, behavioral analytics, and 3D Secure help detect and prevent fraud in real time. Fraud detection techniques like transaction velocity monitoring and device fingerprinting offer additional layers of protection. Balancing fraud prevention with a seamless customer experience is crucial to maintaining trust and reducing false positives. That wraps up Lecture 8 on fraud detection tools and techniques. Feel free to ask any questions, and I'll see you in the next session.